What's up, everybody? KBR Sports, the best sports talk show, your 24-hour day. Your host, Brendan Abbin, with my co-host, Nigel Patterson.
Hello, everybody.
Nigel, what is going on, my brother? It's been like 2 weeks since you've been on the show, my dude.
It has been like 2 weeks. I know people were all like used to the mellow, kind of laid back Brendan Abbin voice. And now we get this like loud screaming in your ear, kind of like nasally scratching into the nail to the chalkboard in your ear kind of voice. But you'll be okay, guys. No, it's been glad. I'm glad to be back.
I was about to say, you think you got a loud?
I get loud though. I ain't gonna lie. I was going back listening. I was like, yo, I get a lot. I'm blowing on my own speakers. Like, come on. Nah, I got class for 2 more weeks, and I'm back at it. I'll be back on here.
How's the classes going?
I'm ready to be done.
I don't blame you.
Like, before this, I was like, man, I'm ready for school. I'm so glad to be in school. Oh, I just want school to be over. Hey, I'm done.
What did I tell you? I told you.
I just want to be done.
Bro, I never forget. You were sitting right here. I was sitting right over there, and I said, "You're like, man, I just can't wait till I go to school. Then I don't got work, blah blah blah." And then you were like, "I was like, bro, watch. You're gonna get tired of school real quick."
I'm real tired of it. I still got 3 classes going on.
Damn, bro.
I got 5 classes next semester.
Really?
Trying to get done by spring.
See, and that's the funny thing though, because like there's so many college students right now that know your strife, and they just know they sympathize with you because it's like, yo, I hate taking summer classes.
Summer classes are the worst, bro. Sitting in a 3-hour course, bro. Anybody who does it, you got it.
I did it. I've done it on. I think I've taken about. Actually, I think almost every semester I've had to take a 3-hour class. I think maybe 1 or 2. No, actually, no, not every semester. I think there were at least 4 semesters I had to take a 3-hour class.
Nah, it's the worst is night classes. The 6:30 to 10:10.
Yep.
That's gonna be getting me.
Yep. Oh, see, yours is even worse then because, well, actually, I think we had about the same because yours is 6:30 to 9. You said 9:10 or 9:30?
Nah, mine's 6:30 to 10:10.
Oh, what?
Yeah, yo.
Oh my god.
It'd be like it's like 9:30. I check out completely. I'm done. Like she be talking. I just like,
ew. Why you have such an ugly?
That's the only class. That's the only time she was teaching.
Oh my god.
And I was like, if she teaches a class, I'm going to take it no matter what the time was, no matter what. I was going to take it.
Oh, see, that's the thing. My 3-hour classes, they were like 7:10 to about 9:50.
Oh, see, my other one, he's 6 o'clock to supposed to be 9:30, but he's like 8 o'clock.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh, but hold on. Before we're talking too much about it, I actually had a question for you.
Okay.
Legitimate sports question. So I was thinking about super teams. What makes a super team?
Let me do my read real quick first.
Go ahead.
All right, y'all. Don't forget to make sure you follow and subscribe to the KBR Sports Podcast on Rabble TV, Spreaker, YouTube, iTunes, and SoundCloud. That way you'll be notified whenever the KBR Sports Podcast is streaming live, such as right now, or when a new podcast is posted for you guys to tune into. Also, don't forget to follow the KBR Sports Twitter page at KBR_sports. That way you will be able to get the live links and show topics prior to every single show. Also, don't forget to call in at 571-991-0566. So that way you can join in on whatever KBR Sports discussion we may be having, and also to pitch your own KBR Sports topics if you want to hear us discuss something KBR Sports related. All right, so what makes a super team?
Yeah, what constitutes a super team?
I'm guessing a team of 3 or more superstars.
So then
superstars are like, at least superstars are all NBA caliber players.
All NBA caliber players.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because I was actually thinking about LeBron's comments. Because he said he never played on a super team, and on surface you're like the stupid shove LeBron. Like you play on super teams, but if you think about his super teams, if you take him off the team, it's not a super team anymore. It's a team that barely makes the playoffs.
Well,
I'm talking about this Cleveland team. The Miami team obviously would have made. I don't think they've been title contenders, but they would have made the playoffs. Okay, so I think there's three. Okay, one of the definitions of super team is what I said, the All NBA thing, and all. I think that's why a lot of people say Golden State will constitute as a super team, obviously, because you have 3 guys that made the All NBA team on there, or made an All NBA team. Then you have Miami's one, where I think you have 3 guys in their prime that could carry a team individually by themselves, and they all come together and play on one team. And so then his Cleveland super team, Cleveland I would say is a super team because of the fact that each player on their own. That's the thing, we haven't at the spaces that we saw Kyrie and Kevin Love by themselves.
one, Kyrie was really young when we saw him playing by himself, and the team surrounding him was hot garbage. And Kevin Love, he didn't have a team either. Really, that was surrounding him, so it's kind of hard to judge. But when you look at them as individual talents, you knew that
they're all NBA talents.
Yeah, they were all NBA talents. So it's like it can kind of be deceiving if you say, "Oh, those guys can carry a team out." So you probably could build a franchise around those guys, but
I based it off the fact that when LeBron hasn't played on these teams, they've been awful.
Well, that's the thing, because the teams, when LeBron comes to the teams, they're not built around...
They're built around LeBron.
Yeah, they're built around LeBron, so it's hard to take the guy that the team is built around and expect it to function at a high level the same way.
My question is then, what type of team would you put around them? Because, I mean, if you look at it in a sense, they have a 3-and-D player in J.R. Smith. Their center would still be Tristan Thompson. That wouldn't change. They had to fill a hole at the 3, but, I mean... I don't know. You probably try and find another 3-and-D, but I mean 3-and-Ds are rare, so you probably just find a guy who either is a good shooter or can't shoot and can play defense. But I mean, like you put unless you put like elite role players around them, which I don't trust Cleveland to do so. I don't see the team being more than maybe a 5 seed.
Well, I mean that's essentially. I mean, you take a guy like LeBron James off a team. That's a big change. I mean,
well, you say
that's
that
the thing.
Because I was thinking about Take, for example...
Kawhi?
Nah, because I don't think they're not a super team. I'm trying to think of a super team. Like, take Shaq missed time with Kobe in 01. Was it 01?
Yeah.
They played fine. They didn't play fine, but they still were an elite team. Jordan retiring. Scottie Pippen still had that team as an elite team.
Well, let me say something to your point, right? Just on the face of those two teams, because of the fact their set offenses weren't engineered around. Like Phil Jackson ran a triangle offense out. Yes, Shaq it relied on Shaq being a dominant center and all that, but you didn't need Shaq to run the triangle offense. But in order for Cleveland's offense to run, you need LeBron. Cleveland's offense doesn't work unless it's LeBron James running the offense. The same thing as like in the example of Michael Jordan. Triangle offense. Right. So, it's certain offensive sets that you can still run without that marquee guy being there. Okay. And so it still works. Whereas Cleveland, everything's predicated on LeBron James. Like everything.
So you think this Cleveland team is a super team?
Yeah, I think it's a super team. I mean, I think the talent that they have at the point guard and the power forward and Kevin Love, I think that would constitute it being a super team. I mean, I think Kevin Love is a top 15 player in the league, top 15, top 20. So I think that when you put 3 guys of that, Kyrie's a top 10. So I think when you put 3 guys of that ilk on the same team, I think you could say that it's a super team. If Boston was considered a super team, I'm definitely considering this team a super team. Yes.
I don't think Boston was a super team.
You don't?
No.
Why is that?
Because you had 3 guys completely not even like coming out of their prime. They were completely out of their prime. KG was not the KG was from Minnesota. Ray Allen was not the same Ray Allen from either Milwaukee / Seattle. These guys were on the tail end of their careers. That they gave like probably what their last good 2 to 3 years they had in the tank, and then that was it. And then if you look at the teams compared to super teams in history, that team would get stomped by other super teams. That's why I'm having such a hard time putting Cleveland on this level of. Because what's the difference between a really good team versus a super team?
Cleveland is a team that I think if you put them up against any other team, they would pretty much beat them except for Golden State. This year. This year. The only other team that might give them bump is the Spurs. I'm not putting the Rockets in there. I haven't seen them play. But the only other team that would really give Cleveland a problem is the Spurs. And that's only because of Kawhi Leonard. Yeah. So if you remove Kawhi and Greg Popovich as a coach. So honestly, and if you drop this Cleveland team up in almost every single championship era series, they have a chance. They have a chance. That's the thing.
But does having a chance make you a super team though?
I think in order, like Allen Iverson's team, we didn't think they had a chance. No, everybody knew they were going to lose.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's certain teams that you think, okay, if you put them against, like reason why we say Golden State could possibly have beaten every team because they are a super team. They're constituted of super talent. Super even though they have 4 All-Stars, everybody's still even saying the Bulls still might have beat them. Or whatever.
Might, but that's the thing. They're in the conversation of the Bulls and the Lakers.
Yeah, but that's the thing. That's only because they've been so regular season dominant, and they were dominant throughout the postseason as well. But if let's say LeBron's team had, even I know they did it, but let's say LeBron's team had almost went perfect. Sure. Or went perfect.
They almost did.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So the reason why Golden State gets talked in that era is because they went 73-9.
They did.
They won 67 games in 2 out of 3 seasons.
And added Kevin Durant.
If LeBron's team would have had a similar display of dominance, then maybe LeBron's team gets talked in that ilk, even though LeBron's team displays that level of dominance in the postseason. They don't do it in the regular season, but they do it in the postseason.
See, I'm starting to think that this Cleveland team, and also due to the defensive woes.
The defensive problem,
it's an issue. That really puts me as this is not an all-time great team. This is a really good team that would be I agree with you. You put them in any year, they're a contender. But that's different to me than saying drop Golden State. They are perennial favorites every single year.
But here's the thing: being a contender, you can say they're a top 3 contender. They might not be the favorites, but you put them in any era, they're a top 3. Because the Lakers, remember the early 2000s, they also had the same kind of issues with Cleveland, that they would kind of take it easy. They wouldn't put as much effort on defense, but then they would turn that gear on, and you knew, it was go time. But Cleveland did the same thing in the playoffs. Once the minute they hit the playoffs, it was like go time. Granted, you can talk about the competition they're facing, but they always find a way to turn the gear on. And you can argue that if they didn't play Golden State, like me and you had the discussion a while ago, I think it was about a week or so ago, if it wasn't for Golden State,
LeBron would be running right now with titles.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean?
But is that more so that because they're so dominant, or is it because the East is garbage, and that there's no other real great teams in the league right now outside of Golden State, San Antonio, and Cleveland?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think it's the fact that I think there was a point in time where you could say that there was, because even when last time Cleveland has never really had opposition in the East like that, which makes it kind of difficult.
Well,
but
no, they haven't.
Yeah, so it makes it kind of difficult to judge their level of dominance. But you can just kind of judge it on a barometer, and if you even put the positions up against positions of other teams in the finals that they played in the finals, you put Kyrie up against Derek Fisher and against on the Lakers teams. Obviously, Kobe's going to win whatever matchup he has at the shooting guard position. LeBron's going to win whatever matchup he has a small forward. Right. Kevin Love wins the power forward matchup. Right. Then Shaq is just going to win that. You put them up against the 05 Pistons or 04-05 Pistons. Now, that actually might have been a struggle for the Cavaliers because of how great that Pistons team was defensively. Yeah. But Cleveland, you can still see Cleveland having a chance there. So,
but that's not. But 04 and 05, that's not a super team.
It's not a super team. But I'm just saying, every year. 07, replace the 07 Cleveland team with this Cleveland team against that Spurs team.
They probably won.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying. It's a good chance that the Cleveland could win against that Spurs team. The only saving grace against that Spurs, they had a prime Tim Duncan. So that's 07. I thought he was like a defensive player of the year candidate that year.
Yeah, he was defensive player of the year candidate every single year.
Duncan was great.
He was great. Yeah, he's always
I thought he was.
He won Finals MVP that year.
I thought he was an MVP candidate that year. Oh, him and Tony Parker were both MVP candidates. But
that's when he took a step back.
Huh?
That's when he took a step back.
Okay, and then if you also play them in 2006, put them against the Miami Heat, Shaq and Dwayne Wade, they probably win that series. If you depend. Oh, Alonzo Mourning too. That. Prime Dwayne Wade, that depends. See, and Gary Payton was on that team too.
These are not all-time great teams. Those are good. These are good teams. The 04-05 Pistons, good team. The 07 Spurs, good team. The 06 the Heat, good team. But if you say like put them against the 80s, any of the 80s Magic or Celtics, put them against the 01 through 03 Lakers. Put them against the Bulls. Put them against the well, they just played the Golden State Warriors. Put them against the 70s Lakers even. Not 70s Lakers. I'm blanking.
The 80s Lakers. The 80s Lakers.
Yeah, 80s Lakers. That's fine. The Philadelphia. Well, no, it's not.
80s Sixers with the with Julius Erving and Moses Malone.
Like you say these teams, and I'm like.
That's the
thing. They're a level right below them.
Those teams are more mystified in history. That's part of it because we've seen a level. Imagine if Cleveland wins the title 2 years ago. Let's say that Kyrie and Kevin Love are healthy. Okay. Cleveland wins back to back. They win 2 out of 3. Okay. That Cleveland is seen in a better light than they are now. Golden State has won. Golden State has been so dominant. Even though people say regular season doesn't matter, the regular season matters a lot, and the level of dominance Golden State has had in the regular season affects how we're seeing them in terms of a dominant super team. If they would have came out and laid an egg and won 50-something games this year, we'd been like, oh man, is this experiment with these guys going to work? And even if they would have came out and dominated the postseason, I mean, everybody would have been, we were overreacting, but still, during the regular season, people would have been like, "Oh, this team isn't as good as we thought they were." But because they come out and win 67 games in their sleep, essentially, it's like you're just like, "Oh, they're that good." Cleveland, think about every year Cleveland has been together. We've always been like, "Oh, is it a chance that Cleveland is having issues? Is there a problem in the locker room?" Like, there's always something about Cleveland coming out and throughout the post or during the regular season. So it's never like we get a clear cut view of Cleveland without some kind of drama or something into it.
All right, that was not supposed to be that long.
Yeah,
genuine was not supposed to be that long. That's supposed to be a quick question.
All right, y'all. We're gonna transition into the next topic where we're talking about how will the Clippers trade work out next season. So, all right, Nigel, answer me this question. So, a Clippers the Clippers and Rockets trade. So right now, we're obviously going to talk about the Rockets end of the trade. So if you're the Rockets now, you just gave away Sam Decker, Montrezl Harrell, Lou Williams, and
you see Lou Williams' tweet?
What do you tweet?
Something about he was hating on the nerds.
Oh really?
Yeah, he's saying all these science all these analyst nerds talking about basketball and they ain't not athletic bone in their body.
Oh man,
yeah,
shots at the Rockets front office.
Right after you got traded.
The Rockets front office, man. Jeez.
I'll be right though.
Am I missing another person that
you're missing a bunch of players, but it's in
that was also included?
Patrick Beverley.
Okay. Yeah.
And there's a couple of other
and a protected first round pick
and some foreign player. And
they waived the guy Darius something.
Harrell got traded. It was a bunch of players.
Yeah, Montrezl Harrell, Sam Decker.
Did you say
Yeah, I said Montrezl Harrell. So, and then obviously the Rockets get back Chris Paul. Mm-hmm. So right now your starting lineup is looking of Chris Paul, James Harden, Trevor Ariza, Ryan Anderson, and Clint Capella. So, or in the Nene, however they decide to do it. Yeah. So, how is this team meshed together? Okay, so before I let you go, let me reel off the stats for people that don't know. So last season, James Harden led the league in assists.
Yes, he did.
Averaged 29.1 points per game, 11.2 assists. Yes. He had 8.1 rebounds, shot 44% from the field, 34.7% from three-point range, 84.7% from the free throw line. He averaged 5.7 turnovers, led the league. He had a 27.4 player efficiency rating. He had 15 win shares, and his usage rate was 34.2%. Go to the other end where Chris Paul averaged 18 points per game, 9 assists, 5 rebounds, shot 47.6% from the field, 41% from three-point range, and 89.2% from the free throw line. And he only averaged 2 turnovers. He had a player efficiency rating of 26.2%. He had 10.6 win shares, and he had a usage rate of 24.4%. How do you see this backcourt pairing working next season with both players being ball-dominant guys?
You brought up the point of you made the point. I don't know if this was on the show or not. You made the point where I said LeBron and Chris Paul play together. You said you don't think it would work because Chris Paul has never played off ball, and you don't know if he could play off ball. I have the exact same question except for James Harden. James Harden played off ball. I understand he played off ball
in Oklahoma City.
It's 5 years ago. That was before he was a superstar. Things have changed. So the question becomes now: is he willing to go but kind of share that role now with Chris Paul and become more of a off-ball player again? I mean, don't get me wrong; he was great. He was great as an off-ball player. He was won 6 Man of the Year.
But on ball, he was an MVP candidate. Runner up.
I mean, it's hard to take two steps forward and then take a step back. Mm-hmm. And same thing with Chris Paul. Chris Paul never played off ball. Even with Blake Griffin showing off that without Chris Paul, he's been an MVP candidate when he was. Chris Paul never took a step back off ball. But like I will say with like LeBron and Dwayne Wade, great players tend to make it work out. It's not like Chris Paul or James Harden is selfish. And Chris Paul is a great shooter. James Harden's a above average shooter. So I mean, in terms of that kind of stuff, it works. But I'm also kind of worried about the defense.
You good?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So I mirror some of your points about about James Harden going, because now you essentially have become this great player you are now from being a very, very ball dominant guy. And there was a point in time when James Harden was seen as a guy that you couldn't really put around with other guys, and he was going to dominate the ball. He was going to use the ball a lot. He wasn't going to pass the ball. But at this point in his career, he's matured into a guy that knows how to distribute, who knows how to pass, who knows how to get other guys involved. But you did see that there were points in the year last season when it wore on James Harden a bit, that he had so much of the offensive load to carry. So I think that's one of those things that James will probably. I think that any guy that's played basketball and that kind of has had to deal with a lot of the ball handling responsibilities, all the pressures and kind of how exhausting and how it can fatigue you very, very easily. So I think it's one of those situations where James Harden definitely is going to take a step back and want to have somebody come in that can make his job a lot easier, because when you play when you're forced to play on the ball so much and you're forced to dominate the ball so much, the defense is consistently focusing all their defensive energy on you. All the defense's ire and all that is pointed towards you. So a lot of it becomes very energy draining. So I definitely feel like for both James Harden and Chris Paul, they both have been in a situation where they've wanted another ball handler to come help them in their struggles, because both guys, they're put in positions where they feel like other guys won't really be able to make plays as well as they can. They won't really be able to evaluate defenses as well as them, and they won't be able to make other guys better as well as them. That's part of the reason why Chris Paul had a lot of discussion surrounding Chris Paul in the offseason, was that, Chris Paul, he pounds the ball in a lot. He's a ball pounder. He dribbles the ball into the ground, and a lot of discussion was that why didn't they utilize Blake Griffin more in that space? Is because Chris Paul always felt as though he was the best decision maker on the team, and so he didn't really delegate that part of the responsibility to Blake Griffin. So maybe now, when you're in a situation with Chris Paul where he now has a guy in James Harden where he feels like, okay, James I trust James to be able to make decisions, to be able to get the ball to guys, to be able to shoot the ball. Obviously, because Houston is just surrounded with 3-point shooters, that he's like, I can trust you to be able to make these plays, be able to get guys in positions to score, because that's what James Harden did all last year, which led to him leading the league in assists. Now, obviously, I think if I had to choose out of the two guys of who I want to be my playmaker, it's going to be Chris Paul. Because, Chris Paul does it at a way more efficient rate. As I listed, Chris Paul this season averaged 9 assists to 2 turnovers, whereas James Harden averaged 11 assists to about 5 turnovers. So that assist to turnover ratio is pretty glaring. But I digress. But I would say that that's one of the reasons why I would definitely take Chris Paul over James in a lot of spaces in terms of who's going to dominate the ball. Now, when it comes to actually the actual flow of the offense running it, I feel like as though Mike D'Antoni, this is what Mike D'Antoni gets paid for. He's paid to delegate. He's paid to delegate responsibility. He's paid to get guys in positions to score, or to put guys in position to be the best or be max out their talent offensively. So I think this is like right up Mike D'Antoni's alley. But you don't make this trade. If you're the Rockets, you don't make this trade without believing that, we could get this to work. And so that's one of those things that I believe is definitely, they felt as though they had a situation where they knew that they could make it work for James and Chris, and it wouldn't really be a bogging down situation for either player. Like, they both would be able to excel in the flow of this offense. So I feel like it's one of those things that Houston, knowing that, or Mike D'Antoni, like, obviously Daryl Morey and them had to get the okay from Mike D'Antoni before they made this deal, and they definitely believed that with Mike D'Antoni could get these guys to work things out and have them both be able to play in a space where they're both comfortable in the role. I think the primary ball handler in this offense would be Chris Paul, just because, obviously Chris Paul has shown that he's the better playmaker, he's the better creator for other guys, and this offense would be tailor-made for a guy like Chris Paul. And how I listed, like, the assist-to-turnover ratio in terms of both players is really glaring. And it's not like Chris Paul would only fulfill that role. There would probably be times when James Harden would fill that role as the ball handler in the offense.
Yeah, but wouldn't it be more? It's like a Wade kind of LeBron kind of thing.
I think it could.
Or more like a Draymond kind of, not a Draymond stuff.
I see it possibly being Because in this situation, I see it possibly being like LeBron and Kyrie in Cleveland, where you have one guy who's more of a pure playmaker, and then you have the other guy who's more scoring, but he can create for other guys.
Right.
I think James Harden is the guy that can create for other guys, and Mike D'Antoni showed that to us this past season, how he used James Harden at the point guard position. But I think at times it weighed on James Harden too much of how much responsibility he had to carry. And so now James Harden can float more to his natural position and just worry about scoring more. I mean, but now he has that playmaking ability in him as well, where it's kind of like a double threat, where even though James Harden will be off ball and stuff like that, you can use him in spaces where he's always a threat to play, make, and score as well. And Mike D'Antoni, being the offensive wizard he is, he will be able to put both guys in positions where they'll be able to max out their abilities. The reason why I say it's different than Miami is because of the fact Dwayne Wade wasn't a shooter. Dwayne Wade wasn't really a perimeter scorer or anything like that. So
mid-range killer.
Yeah, he was more of a mid-range guy. So I would definitely say that that's the main difference between the two, is that both James Harden and Chris Paul can shoot the basketball, and because Houston has a lot more three-point shooting everywhere, and Houston's game is so predicated on three-point shooting. So I think that's the big difference between this situation and maybe a Miami situation.
Right. Trying to think. Now, are you worried that Chris Paul now is your de facto second option, and that, how am I trying to word this? Because they have offense outside of James Harden.
Yeah.
But you don't trust Eric Gordon to create his own shot.
You don't trust Trevor Reeves to create his own shot.
You definitely don't trust Clint Capella to create his own shot. Let alone touch a basketball. You don't trust
Ryan Anderson
to create his own shot. So you're going to need Chris Paul to be aggressive.
Or does that worry you that Chris Paul has now have to be the de facto aggressive player on the team?
Well, I don't know. I don't think Chris Paul actually has to be aggressive. I think a lot of the times what the issue was in the Clippers was that Blake Griffin was supposed to be the James Harden role. Right. He was supposed to be the guy that's supposed to be aggressive, like, you can't stop me from scoring, blah, blah, blah. But Blake Griffin's game wasn't developed enough that you could just give him the ball and say, get me a bucket, or sort of thing. Or he didn't have the shooting capability that is spaced out the court enough and it gave Chris Paul room to orchestrate. I don't think a lot of times Chris Paul does sometimes have to become that second guy, but I think it wasn't true saying, like, you can never truly say Chris Paul or Blake Griffin was better than Chris Paul. Chris Paul has always been the best player on the Clippers.
Right.
Whereas right now in Houston, you can say James Harden. I think James Harden is a better player out of the two right now. Even though Chris Paul might be better all around in terms of scoring, James Harden is a better scorer than Chris Paul right now. So I think you can, in terms of when you need a bucket, you can give the ball to James Harden to score it for you. Because I mean, he's a 6'6", 6'7".
You really think James Harden's better than Chris Paul?
Scoring wise, just as this is a scorer. I'm not talking about. I said Chris Paul might be better all around, but James Harden is a better just scorer. Like, that's the thing. Blake Griffin was the 6'10" guy, but you never could definitively say he was better scorer than Chris Paul because he couldn't shoot, or he had a streaky shot at best. So that's the thing. I mean, if I look at I think on this season, Chris Paul shot 47% from the field. Blake Griffin shot just around the same percentage. And Blake Griffin plays way closer to the basket than Chris Paul does.
Not anymore. I mean, we do okay.
And so I think that's one of those things that now you get a guy that definitely is the de facto number one scorer. And Chris Paul definitely, I think he could play from that second scoring role. But I mean, that's if we are saying that this team will stay how it is currently constructed, which Daryl Morey has said that he plans to go out and make more moves to get other guys.
Well, my question to you is that you say that Blake Griffin was never been better than Chris Paul. My question to you is then, would you say that Chris Paul marginalized Blake Griffin? Because remember the thought was, I think I brought this up before on the show, that the thought was after Griffin had his MVP caliber year, there was a thought that he was going to take the next step. When Chris Paul came back, he was going to take the next step. He was going to be the main focus of the offense. He was going to be the guy kind of initiating things, and Chris Paul will be his second in command. But it never kind of worked like that. Chris Paul was always still the main guy, with Blake Griffin being his second in command. But you don't think that maybe it is a worry that, Chris Paul had a guy who looked to be a superstar, and due to him or due to Blake, just never kind of worked out after that?
I think Chris Paul did hinder Blake some. But Blake hindered Blake as well, I believe, because there were elements to Blake's game that we all I mean, Blake wasn't as developed offensively as we all thought he should have been. In terms of his jumper was streaky. His in the post moves weren't as great as they could have been. There were at times Blake Griffin just seemed, I don't know, like it just seemed like in times where Blake Griffin athletically, when you looked at Blake Griffin's matchups athletically, you always thought Blake Griffin's the better guy. Like in most cases, on most nights, Blake Griffin was always a better player than the guy he was going against. But when it came to dominating that matchup, it never felt like he really truly just dominated that matchup. So and sometimes I felt like that's where Chris Paul's caution came from, just letting Blake Griffin hold the reins of the offense. And that's something that I think Chris Paul also has to work on himself as a player to be more willing to relieve some of that ball handling responsibilities to other guys. So I mean, it goes twofold for me in terms of the Chris Paul Blake Griffin thing. So actually, I want to go to break on this one. And so when we alluded to the fact that the Rockets said they weren't done adding players, who in free agency this year should they continue to add? Who should they trade for? You've heard multiple names, such as Blake Griffin, Carmelo Anthony, and others. Stay tuned to find out who we think the Rockets should gun for. It's KBR Sports, the best sports talk show 24 hours a day. Don't forget, once the live link ends, wait about 30 to 40 seconds, then the link will be right back for you guys to tune into. It's KBR Sports.